Welcome to Scaling with People, your weekly playbook for turning chaos into compounding growth. Each week, we go under the hood with battle-tested experts in all areas of business, from marketing to sales, operation, finance, and people, plus product and leadership, to unpack the plays, numbers, and systems that turn chaos into compounding growth. Learn straight from founders and experts who've done it and continue to do it successfully. There's zero fluff, just moves that you can steal immediately. This podcast is brought to you by Guide to HR, human expertise, AI-powered impact.
Welcome, everyone, to today's Scaling with People podcast. I'm Guinevere Curry, your host and founder and CEO to Guide to HR. So what if the way you've been building culture is actually breaking your company's future? On today's episode, we sit down with Karen Zeigler, CEO of HumanScore, to challenge everything you think you know about leadership in the age of AI and spark a full-blown workplace renaissance. From human-centered design to reimagining how organizations actually function, this is the playbook for leaders who refuse to let outdated systems cap their growth. If you're still scaling like it's 2015, this conversation will feel like a wake-up call. Super excited to have you on today's episode, Karen. Before we get started, tell the audience a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so thank you so much, Guinevere, for having me here. Excited to talk with you and your audience. I am the CEO, as you mentioned, of the HumanScore. I've been doing this since all of last summer. But I've been in the human-centered design and leadership space for quite a while now. And I really love merging, what's traditionally been used for designing products and services as a way to design high-performing teams. And quite frankly, it couldn't come at a more perfect time because HumanScore is really setting itself up as the tool for organizations to use before they implement AI, so that they make sure that people structure is designed in the right way before they begin adding on that layer of technology, which cannot do what the people have been adapting and doing for a long time.
Absolutely. And I mean, foundation is key to any success for anything, but especially when it comes to people and your AI tools and understanding what you really need. Layering on multiple tools and spending lots of money isn't necessarily going to help you move forward. In fact, it could hinder you. So I think this is such a great tool and timely as well. As we, before we dive into our topic today, my listeners know I love putting my founders on the hot seat. I'd love for you to share a lesson learned as a founder, CEO. I know you just started your business, so maybe if you don't have one quite yet, maybe from your past experience as well, but just a lesson learned that our founders and leaders can hear from.
Yeah. Well, I would say the most recent is HumanScore just was approved to be a research provider for SHRM, the Society of HR Management. And I was all gung-ho. We were ready to create a lot of content for HR leaders and professionals around what we do at the HumanScore. And we have an independent group of consultants that not only offer our HumanScore dashboard, but also educate with us and do other things. And so we kind of learned the hard way. We jumped through a bunch of hoops in order to get something on the SHRM activity list when the consultant was already delivering it to a SHRM chapter. And so we didn't need to do all that work. So I would say, understand your workflow and the process, especially when you're in partnership with someone else, because you may be jumping through hoops that you don't need to jump through.
Oh, that is such a good lesson too. And I would even think, like, part of me was thinking you were going to go the route of like, and you spent all this resources, time, money, energy. I'm not sure if there's money, but time and energy on executing this. And then the ROI is not what you expected it to be. Sometimes that's hard to know, the ROI, right? You think it's going to be one thing and you just have to execute and try, test and see what happens. And sometimes if you just kind of do a little bit more research ahead of time, you might find, oh, that's definitely not worth whatever resources you're totally using. So that is a great lesson. I appreciate you sharing that. So
yeah,
we talk about leadership and org design culture. What's a belief about leadership or org design that you think is completely outdated but is still widely practiced today?
Well, I would say that it falls under the umbrella of command and control. Leaders still think, I'm the boss. they should just do what I tell them because I'm paying them. And that is so outdated. And, even since before the pandemic, that was already falling apart. AI, of course, is making that fall apart faster. And so leaders are having to learn a new way to lead. And that involves co-creation, co-creating with their employees how work is designed, how the structure works, how decisions are made. And it's interesting how AI is actually not only the tool for doing that, but it's also the teacher. I mean, if you think of your own experience with AI, individually, we are already co-creating with AI. So that co-creation with AI is also teaching us how can we begin to co-create with our employees. And so, in the future, instead of just the board being at the table saying, this is what we're going to do, you'll have everyone at the table, along with their AIs, co-creating what needs to happen next.
That makes a lot of sense. And I definitely see that transition, like you said, before the pandemic happened, but certainly during and after the pandemic, it was, you're a manager, the employees basically have to figure out how to manage you. Now the manager has to figure out how to manage the employees. And with AI, it's the co-create piece. That's such a great perspective. So when we talk about human-centered leadership, how can we make it practical? What does it actually look like in execution and not just theory from your perspective?
Human-centered design applied to leadership, human-centered leadership. Human-centered design is all about meeting the needs of the individual. So it's easy to think about human-centered design when it comes to the customer, because obviously if you don't meet a customer's need, they're going to go buy somewhere else that does meet their need, right? But what's happening inside organizations now is employees are doing the same thing. I have these needs, especially as it relates to getting my work done every day. And if you're not going to meet them, then I'm going to go find another place to work, or I'm going to work, do my own thing. The gig, economy is there for a reason. So it's really about what are the needs of my employees. And I'm not talking about perks and programs. I'm talking about, I've spent 3 hours for the last 5 years doing a workaround because of the system issue with this workflow. And I've complained about it. You've had your listening tours and I've told you about it. You've still yet to do anything about it. Well, AI, of course, is forcing our hand there. But even with AI, it really becomes what are the needs of the employees so that we can address those in a way that restructures work design, structure, decision-making, all those things. So it really comes down to what are the needs of my employee? I love philosophy. The obstacle is the way. If there are obstacles keeping your employees from doing their job efficiently and effectively, that's your way. Go find those obstacles, remove them, use AI to remove them, and you have met their needs and you have made a path that's going to be more efficient, more effective for getting the work done, which obviously impacts the bottom line of how you serve the customer.
Yeah, I see that a really great leader is one who knows the skills and experience of their teams and how they're subject matter experts, and then gives them the tools to be able to execute, and then clears any roadblocks that they can't clear on their own. Sometimes leveling requires a higher level to clear something, right? And prioritization, I would guess, would be the next one too. So I think that falls so in line with that thought process. So talking about AI, people know I'm an AI junkie. What do you see as, I don't know, I think eventually we'll have AI anonymous, right? Hi, I'm Guinevere, I'm an AI junkie.
Yeah.
But what do you see, most companies that are layering AI on top of broken systems, what's the risk of doing that? Because that's what I'm starting to see is that they're just throw AI in and it'll fix everything. What are you seeing as the risk for companies that are in that mentality right now?
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of risks, and we can see it even with Anthropic, the AI, one of the AI models that everyone is using, and how their code was leaked yesterday. So, when you layer on AI without having the human's operating system, is what I like to call it, in place and operating efficiently, you subject yourself to some pretty big risks, to the point of letting your secret sauce as a business out into the public. That's just one example, but anyway, yeah, it's a layer of risk because, before AI, you had time to think about something or consider it or whatever the case may be, to evaluate risk. But if you don't do those things ahead of time with AI, it's gonna, what may have cost you $100, before AI, it could cost you thousands of bucks after AI. It really just magnifies everything.
Yeah, it really, I think, showcases how important keeping a human in the loop is critical to whatever it is you're trying to accomplish with AI. And even the fact of a lot of founders out there are telling me, oh, this is going to solve all my sales. I don't need a sales team or my marketing team, or I don't need HR or recruiting. And I'm like, oh, you need all of those things. Like you might not need as big of a team, right?
Right.
But you do still need the human aspect of it. So if
Yeah.
you were advising a founder implementing AI today, what would you redesign first before touching the tech?
Yeah, well, the primary three that are coming out in the failures that are making news and in the research by folks like McKinsey and Ernst and Young are the workflow design. So workflows are broken. So how does work get done? And that can be as simple as, your marketing team from idea to delivery on social media. For customer service, it could be the intake of the order all the way to the output of the delivery of the order. So, every company has multiple workflows. And at some point, a lot of those workflows connect to one another. And so if there's breaks there, that has to be fixed or AI can't do it. The other thing is data silos. Companies have added digital transformation for decades, right? Every new tool is a digital transformation. So they got, this system and this system, multiple systems, and none of them share the same data in the same way. And that's an issue because AI can't connect. If it's looking for Betty Smith over here, but it's B.A. Smith here and
Mrs. Smith.
Agnes, yeah, is Agnes Smith over there, it's not going to know that that's all the same person. And so it can really mess up your customer service. And then the third one is, decision making. If the decision making has all these unspoken rules and different ways of doing things that, this is what the policy says, but this is how we actually get the work done. That's not going to fly with AI. So all those are the three primary, but yeah, that's where I would start, and that's part of what the HumanScore identifies. Where are those things broken?
That's so awesome because I think, again, it goes back to foundation, what we talked about initially and what I've talked about in past podcasts as well. And it really does show where your business from a process, tooling, operations perspective is broken. And I find it fascinating because it's like, oh, well, AI is going to solve this, but actually you have to solve it before you can give it to AI and then AI can execute on it. But there's this like mind shift of like thinking like AI is going to solve it without having to fix it first. So I think people are starting to kind of wake up now and realize, no, I got to have the SOP basically every step by step so that when AI executes, it doesn't execute incorrectly.
Yeah. And I do think AI can play a role. Like I said, everybody's around the table on the team and you are bringing your expertise, but you're also working with AI. So it's not that they can't outline a better way, but actually implementation from outlining a better way to delivery is there's humans in that step, right?
Yeah, exactly. Otherwise, we'd start getting the same product and services from every company if we just use AI.
Exactly. Yes, exactly.
Yeah. So where do you see AI taking over versus where humans should never be replaced?
Well, I mean, the three that stick out and are talked about the most are critical thinking, connection, human connection where that's necessary, and creativity. And, I think, what's missing in a lot of the decisions right now is the critical thinking. They're just thinking, oh, yeah, AI is so smart, it can do all the thinking for me. And yeah, that's only true to a point. you still need human discernment and wisdom in there. And not only human discernment and wisdom, but also direct experience as to what you do for your customers or with your customers. So there's a lot there. But I think probably the biggest area of growth for today's leaders is the creativity, because they historically have said, oh, my people aren't creative. They don't know what to do here. When in fact, they just kind of had job description, what I call job description blinders on, and they've not seen the real innovative and creative talents of their employees, because they have a task list to do, and that's what they do.
Yeah.
So they're going to really have to open their eyes to see what creativity is. And creativity, that is a misnomer in and of itself. Every personality creates in a different way, and you can't have 10 Steve Jobs in your company and expect to be this innovation genius, because Steve Jobs didn't do it alone. It might have been his idea, but there was still a team that made that vision happen. And so, but they're not even looking for the one Steve Jobs or the 10 Steve Jobs, and then how the others fit around that. But I think they'll begin to think about that more and more.
Yeah, I like that. So what do you see separates companies that use AI to amplify people from those that accidentally dehumanize the workforce? What do you see happens in those different company cultures and success of companies?
Yeah. Amplify, that's part of the 3-part process we're teaching in Workplace Renaissance. And amplify really is about amplifying the gifts and talents of the individual. So what's happening right now with AI is amplification is, you write 100, you can write 100 emails now. We're going to amplify that, and you can write 300 emails. But that's not the type of application that's going to have an impact, right? Because everything that we can produce more of eventually has a diminishing return. It's the things that we can't produce more of, that individual creativity or critical thinking or whatever it is, that's what we want to amplify. So, if I'm a writer, then how can I write more content for my company? Or if I am a critical thinker, where are my skills needed, and how can I make decisions better and more educated? And you can use AI to amplify that critical thinking skill. So that is just kind of a couple of examples of what amplify means. It starts with the human and their innate gifts and talents, and then we layer on how can AI begin to support them so they can do more of that zone of genius, I like to call it.
So you're talking about the workplace renaissance. What does that actually mean, and why now?
Yeah, the workplace renaissance. Well, if you think about the original Renaissance in history, it started with the printing press. And when everybody got access to information in that Renaissance, creativity, innovation, all those things just blew up. And that's what created the whole Renaissance movement, right? It was tipped off by the printing press. AI is that printing press moment. Everyone's getting access to so much information that they never had before. And from that, creativity can flourish, innovation can flourish. And so, I believe it's an excellent opportunity for companies not to eliminate employees because of AI, but to, elevate them and the skills that they have and the talents and the gifts, that creative piece of things that they right now don't see because of the job description blinders.
Yeah. So if a founder is listening right now and realizes they've built something that's misaligned, what's the first move they should make this week?
Well, if they realize they have found something misaligned, then the first step obviously is to go back and correct the alignment, right? Because things will not work as succinctly as they can if they're not aligned. And, we've depended on employees really for so long to figure that alignment out, or to do a dance around the misalignment. But just like employees doing that has led us to where we are now, with problems with retention, problems with mental health, problems with well-being, all those things that have been amplified from humans doing the workarounds of all those things. Not only are important for humans to to find that alignment. It's imperative for AI to have that alignment.
Oh yeah, for sure. Because if it doesn't, it's going to go off track real quickly, right? I mean, I think it
Yes.
actually amplifies going off track even worse than a human does in that
Yes.
example. So yeah, having to
Yeah.
definitely, I think you actually have to focus your time and attention even more so on alignment with AI and people versus, I mean, you obviously should do it with
Oh,
just the people, but now you're going to
yeah.
put this tool that's just going to amplify that misalignment
Yeah.
very quickly. Yeah.
Well, yeah, yeah. If you think about it, a human who's making adjustments for alignment, misalignments, they're doing so to really CYA. I want to look good in my job. I want to look good in my job. I want to be promoted. I want to have expanded opportunities. AI doesn't have that.
No,
I'm
it doesn't
just here.
care.
I'm just here to do this faster, right?
Yeah, that's so true. So I'm curious, what's a shift that someone could implement immediately if their people experience in the company starts to go sideways?
Uh, Repeat that because I'm not
Yeah.
sure. I have an idea, but I'm not sure I'm going in the direction you want it to go.
Okay, no problem. So what's one shift or activity a founder or leader could do immediately today to help improve their people's experience within the company in a positive
Mm,
way?
yeah. Uh, Actually, not only listen, which a lot of today's surveys are about, but take what you hear, because this is where Steve Jobs was a genius. He could observe a situation, he could listen to what was going on, and he knew automatically, even though the customer may have not have known what was needed. And so leaders have that opportunity, even though your employees may or may not know the answer. By listening to them, especially in a consensus fashion, you can see what the needs are, and it's in the removal of those needs that they can begin to excel. So not only does it allow your employees to be more creative and innovative, it allows you as the leader to be more creative and innovative, because whatever that obstacle is that you notice, then you can begin to co-create those solutions together, and that's where the real fun happens.
I love that because co-creating, like you might see the problem differently than they're experiencing it because they're at the front of it, right? So to be able to
Yeah.
co-create with them and give them, empower them, but then actually be able
Yeah.
to give something that's going to help them execute and lift them up. It will
Yeah.
just like, wow, that's a win-win in my mind.
Yeah, absolutely. And the cool thing about that co-creation process is goes beyond their job description blinders, or if an employee could say, these are the tasks I do, so they may know from an experience standpoint of how to rework it, but they also may know from an innate talent perspective what would make that work. And so they begin to expand and grow in ways that are not only impactful to the company but very meaningful to them in their jobs and roles.
Yeah. Well, as we wrap up today's conversation, do you have one warning or one piece of advice that you'd like to give leaders in regards to scaling in the age of AI? What would that be?
Mm. Listen, listen, and listen with empathy. Not empathy in trying to understand their emotions, but empathy in trying to understand the need. Once you understand the need, it is the lock that unlocks everything.
Great advice, Karen. Appreciate you coming on today and talking about AI and culture and how to execute it within your business. For those listening, I hope you got great tidbits and tricks and tools to take to your office and start implementing right away. Thanks for joining us today, and we'll see you on the next podcast. Have a great one.
Thank you, Gwenedy.
That's a wrap for today's episode of Scaling with People. If you got value from this conversation, do me a favor, share it with someone building something big. And hey, I'd love to hear your take. Drop a comment, shoot me a message, or start a conversation. And don't forget to subscribe so you never miss the bold, unfiltered strategies we drop every week. I'm Guinevere Query, founder and CEO of Guide to HR, where we help high-growth companies scale smart with people-first strategies and AI-powered systems that don't just keep up, they lead. If you're building fast and want your HR to move faster, head to guidetohr.com and let's talk. And remember, scale isn't just about speed, it's about people. Until next time, have a great one.